Have you ever wondered how a gift from the gods, something so beautiful and divine, could become humanity's greatest curse? This is the story of Pandora's Box, a moment of curiosity that changed the world forever. But the real question is, why did Pandora open the forbidden box? Was it just a fleeting weakness, or a trap carefully set by the gods? And when that box was opened, what dark secrets escaped that filled the world with suffering, sickness, and death? Greek mythology tells us it was the most dangerous gift ever given, one that turned mankind over to their own fears. Yet one mystery remains. When everything had escaped, why was hope the only thing left inside? Was it mercy, or another cruel deception? So now the choice is yours. Is this story nothing more than a myth, or does it hold truths that still echo through our lives today? Sit back, let yourself drift into the shadows of ancient legend, and prepare to uncover what Pandora left behind. A secret that will leave you astonished. And before we begin, if you enjoy journeys like these into history and myth, kindly subscribe to our channel. Also, share your city and current time in the comments. It's always amazing to see which corners of the world our stories are reaching. Imagine a time when the world was young and humanity lived in innocence, free from the burdens that define our lives today. There was no sickness, no sorrow, no envy, no despair. People lived simply, without the weight of pain pressing on their shoulders. But the gods, ever watchful, were not satisfied with this balance. For while mankind seemed fragile, they were growing stronger, daring even to defy Olympus. The Titan Prometheus had already stolen fire from the heavens, handing it to humanity and giving them the tools to shape their own destiny. With fire came warmth, progress, and survival. But with fire also came defiance, and Zeus, king of the gods, could not forgive such an insult. He wanted humanity to understand that no gift came without a cost. And so, a plan was set into motion, one that would change the course of human history forever. From clay and divine power, the gods shaped a woman unlike any the world had ever seen. Hephaestus, the master craftsman, molded her body with perfect skill. Aphrodite breathed beauty into her form, so radiant that she seemed like a living jewel, dazzling and irresistible. Athena gave her wisdom and grace, teaching her the arts of weaving and thought. Hermes added charm, a silver tongue, and a touch of cunning. Each god contributed something, making her a masterpiece of divine design. And then Zeus gave her a name, Pandora, the one who bears all gifts. On the surface, it seemed like an offering, a blessing wrapped in elegance and beauty. But beneath that beauty lay something else, something hidden. Curiosity, a spark planted in her heart that would one day ignite into an uncontrollable fire. Pandora did not come to mankind empty-handed. Along with her beauty, grace, and charm, she carried with her a vessel. Some called it a jar, others later called it a box, but whatever it was, it held a secret sealed tightly within. It was given to her with a simple instruction: never open it. The warning was clear, but the purpose of the jar was cloaked in mystery. Why would the gods create something so tempting, yet forbid its use? It was a riddle without an answer, a silent test that followed Pandora into her new life. The jar stood always in sight, quiet and ordinary in appearance, yet humming with unseen energy. First she tried to ignore it. Days passed, and she lived her life as the gods intended, radiant, admired, and filled with divine grace. But the jar was always there, watching from the shadows of her home, waiting patiently for the moment her curiosity would take hold. Pandora would glance at it when no one was looking, her thoughts spinning with possibilities. Perhaps it held treasures, or wisdom, or blessings yet untold. Perhaps it was something meant for her alone. And the more she tried to dismiss these thoughts, the stronger they became. Curiosity is like a whisper. It begins softly, then grows louder each time it is ignored. Eventually, silence turned to obsession. The warning not to open the jar no longer felt like protection. It felt like a challenge. Why place such a thing in her care if she was never meant to touch it? Why tempt her with beauty, knowledge, and grace, and then deny her the right to discover what had been hidden? These questions burned within her, until one day she could no longer resist. Alone, with trembling hands, she approached the jar. The air around her seemed heavy, charged with anticipation. She hesitated, her fingers brushing over the sealed lid. She told herself it would be only a moment, only a glimpse. Surely the gods would forgive such a small act. Surely nothing so terrible could come from lifting a lid. And then, with one swift motion, she opened it. What followed was chaos. From the jar burst a whirlwind of shadows and horrors, pouring into the world with unstoppable force. They rushed past her, shrieking and clawing, spreading in every direction. Sickness, aging, sorrow, despair, jealousy, greed, hunger, pain. Every form of suffering humanity would ever know escaped that vessel in a storm of despair. Pandora staggered back, terrified, her heart breaking as she realized what she had unleashed. She tried to push the lid closed, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and the world would never again be the same. For the first time, humanity felt weakness. Illness crept into their homes, stealing health and joy. Grief weighed on their hearts, and mistrust poisoned their relationships. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, envy tore at their bonds, and fear haunted their every step. All the sufferings that had once been unknown now became part of daily life, inescapable and cruel. Pandora fell to her knees, devastated by her choice. She had been a gift, but she had also been the tool of a curse. Her beauty and grace had dazzled the world, but her curiosity had changed it forever. And yet, as she looked back at the jar, something unexpected stirred within it. Not all had escaped. From its depths came a softer light, faint but steady. It was not like the dark forces that had fled before. It was gentle, almost comforting. That light was hope. Though weakened and fragile, it remained behind, as if the gods had chosen not to strip humanity of everything. Perhaps it was an act of mercy, or perhaps a cruel trick, giving humans just enough strength to endure endless suffering. But whatever the reason, hope became the final gift, the one thing left when all else had been lost. And so, humanity stepped into a new world, one marked by hardship but also resilience. From that day on, life would never again be free of pain. But with pain came endurance, with sorrow came compassion, and with despair came the unyielding spark of hope, the force that kept people moving forward even when the weight of existence grew unbearable. Pandora's story has echoed through centuries not just as a myth, but as a reflection of human nature itself. For isn't that what defines us? The unshakable desire to know, to see, to understand, even when the consequences may be dire. Curiosity may have unleashed suffering, but it also gave us the strength to carry on. In Pandora's choice, we see both the danger and the wonder of being human, the endless struggle between despair and hope. Because even in our darkest moments, when suffering feels too great to bear, there remains that faint but unbreakable light, reminding us that no matter what escapes into our world, humanity will endure. The earliest days of the world, before mankind had been marked by sorrow and sickness, life was simple. People did not yet know of despair or envy, hunger or disease. They lived untouched by the shadows that we now take for granted. Yet in this golden age, Zeus, ruler of Olympus, burned with anger. He had been defied by Prometheus, the titan who had dared to steal fire and place it into the hands of mortals. Humanity now had the ability to cook their food, forge weapons, and build shelters that defied the cold. It was a gift of progress, and a direct insult to the authority of the King of Gods. Zeus would not allow mankind to grow powerful without consequence. The gods began to weave a plan. From the divine forge of Hephaestus came the shape of a woman, sculpted from clay with unmatched craftsmanship. Her form was flawless, every detail carefully designed to enchant. Then came the blessings or curses depending on how one sees them. Aphrodite granted her irresistible beauty, a face and presence so luminous that no mortal or god could look away. Athena clothed her in elegance and wisdom, a mind sharp enough to inspire trust. Hermes gave her a silver tongue and cunning, making her words sweet but dangerous. Finally, Zeus breathed into her a spark that was more dangerous than any physical weapon: curiosity. This woman, the creation of all the gods, was named Pandora, the bearer of all gifts. When Pandora was presented to Epimetheus, brother of Prometheus, she appeared to be nothing more than a divine blessing. Prometheus had warned his brother never to accept gifts from Zeus, but Epimetheus could not resist her charm. She was too perfect, too radiant to turn away. He welcomed her, unaware that by doing so, he was welcoming the downfall of mankind. Among Pandora's possessions was a mysterious jar, sealed tightly and adorned with symbols. It was not large, but it seemed ancient, humming with unseen energy. She had been given one instruction: never open it. That command echoed in her mind, simple yet puzzling. Why give her something so significant, only to forbid its use? What danger could possibly lie within such a vessel? At first, Pandora kept her distance. She lived happily, admired by those around her, her days filled with grace and laughter. But the jar never left her sight. It sat quietly in the corner, silent yet magnetic, drawing her gaze when no one else noticed. Curiosity is not a force that shouts, it whispers. And each day the whisper grew louder. She would imagine what might be inside. Perhaps treasures the gods had hidden for her, rewards for her obedience. Or perhaps wisdom, secret knowledge that would make her more than mortal. Sometimes, she told herself that opening it only for a glance would not truly count as disobedience. After all, the gods would surely forgive curiosity. They had placed it within her, hadn't they? The thought consumed her. Each passing day the jar's presence grew heavier, as though the air around it thickened with temptation. When she closed her eyes at night, she dreamed of what might lie within. When she awoke, it was the first thing she thought of. The simple warning, "Do not open," no longer felt like protection. It felt like a challenge. And so the moment arrived. Alone, trembling with anticipation and fear, Pandora approached the jar. Her fingers brushed across its surface, tracing the carvings that had always seemed to shift under the light. She hesitated, telling herself she could stop at any time. It would be only a moment, only a glance. Surely nothing so terrible could come of curiosity. With a deep breath, she lifted the lid. Instantly, the world changed. From the jar erupted a storm of shadows and horrors. rushing out in a frenzy. They poured into the air with shrieks and cries, scattering across the earth faster than Pandora could react. Sickness spread like fire, striking down the strong. Envy wormed its way into hearts, turning love into bitterness. Hunger clawed at bellies, greed poisoned the mind, old age bent strong backs, despair whispered into souls. Every suffering known to humanity today came bursting forth in that one terrible instant. Pandora gasped, her heart breaking as she realized what she had done. She tried desperately to slam the lid shut, but her hands shook, her strength failed, and the evil slipped through her grasp. Tears filled her eyes as she watched the golden age of mankind vanish before her. The earth grew heavier, darker, as suffering took root in every corner. But then, as silence fell and the jar lay nearly empty, she heard something faint, softer than the cries of despair, but steady. From the darkness within came a gentle light. Curious still, though now broken with grief, she leaned close. It was not another curse, but something different, something fragile yet luminous. It was hope. Pandora quickly closed the jar, trapping that final essence inside, but its presence had already spread into the world. Unlike the evils that escaped freely, hope remained elusive, sometimes hidden, sometimes faint, but always there. Enough to remind humanity that even in the worst of times, something better could be waiting. And so the story of Pandora became a story of contrasts. Beauty and curse, curiosity and consequence, despair and hope. She was created to be a gift, but also a trap. Her curiosity destroyed the innocence of the world, yet she preserved the one thing that makes life bearable. For even when sickness weakens the body, envy corrodes relationships, and sorrow clouds the heart, hope burns quietly, urging mankind to endure. This myth is not just a tale of punishment, it is a mirror to our own nature. For what is humanity if not endlessly curious, forever seeking answers, even when they bring danger? Pandora's story warns us of the cost of curiosity, but it also honors the resilience that defines us. Suffering may have been unleashed, but with it came the strength to rise, rebuild, and continue. There was a time when the world did not know pain. Imagine a life where no one grew weak with age, no one collapsed from illness, no one felt the burn of envy, and no heart was broken by despair. The air was lighter then, the fields richer, the waters clear and plentiful. Humanity lived in a golden age, a time when every day seemed touched by the blessing of the gods. But such perfection was not meant to last. From the moment Prometheus defied Zeus and gifted mankind with fire, the seeds of punishment were already sown. And when Pandora's trembling hands lifted the lid of that forbidden jar, the very fabric of existence began to tear. First there was silence. The jar, heavy and carved with strange marks, gave no hint of its contents. But the moment the seal was broken, a force unlike anything humanity had ever known came bursting forth. Out of the darkness within, swarms of unseen shapes scattered like a storm breaking loose from the heavens. They were not creatures of flesh and blood, but shadows given form, curses carried on the wind. One by one, they rushed into the world, and with them came the transformation of mankind's destiny. The first was sickness. It crept silently into the bodies of men and women, draining their strength, turning laughter into coughing, and hope into feverish whispers. No longer could mortals live in perfect health. From that day onward, every heartbeat carried the possibility of weakness, and every child born into the world carried the burden of fragility. Then came hunger, The earth, once generous, grew stubborn. Crops failed, fruits soured, and bellies ached with emptiness. Where once people had eaten freely without toil, now they labored tirelessly, yet still the gnawing hunger remained. Food became a prize to be won, and survival became a daily battle. Envy followed closely, slithering like a serpent into the hearts of mortals. Friends began to measure themselves against one another. Love turned sour when poisoned by comparison. No one was safe from the corrosive whispers that told them they lacked what others possessed. Communities fractured, families broke apart, and envy became a silent war fought inside every soul. Old age crept in too, a shadow that lengthened over every life. Bodies once filled with vigor bent under the weight of time. Hair turned gray, skin withered, hands that once worked swiftly trembled with weakness. For the first time, humanity learned what it meant to fade, to watch life slowly drain away. Despair was perhaps the cruelest of all. It sank into hearts, heavier than stone, convincing people that their struggles had no meaning. Where once every sunrise was a promise, despair made it a burden. It whispered to men and women that there was no point in resisting, no point in dreaming, no point in continuing. It was despair that made the world truly heavy. As these forces scattered, humanity cried out in confusion. They looked to the heavens, asking why the gods had abandoned them. But the gods did not answer. Only Zeus, watching from Olympus, allowed himself a bitter smile. His punishment was complete. Mankind, once proud and full of potential, was now broken, chained not by fire or stone, but by the endless weight of suffering. And at the center of it all stood Pandora, horrified at what she had unleashed. She tried desperately to close the jar, to stop the flood of curses, but her hands were slow and her strength small compared to the storm she had released. By the time she managed to seal it shut, the damage was already done. The golden age was gone, replaced forever by an age of toil, suffering, and mortality. Yet, all was not lost, for in the deepest corner of the jar, beneath the layers of shadow and misery, something faint remained. A glow, soft and warm, like the first light of dawn after a night of storms. It was hope, the one force the gods had not intended to spread so freely, but which slipped into the world nonetheless. Unlike the curses that rushed out wildly, hope lingered, fragile but enduring. It did not erase suffering, but it gave humanity the strength to endure it. From that day forward, mankind knew pain. They knew sickness, hunger, envy, and despair. But they also learned resilience. They worked harder, dreamed bigger, and loved more fiercely, because now they understood the cost of losing it. Hope, though small, became their anchor. Even in the darkest nights, when sickness raged and hunger clawed, there was always a whisper that tomorrow might be better. The world was transformed forever. The golden age would never return, but in its place arose something new, a humanity shaped not by ease, but by endurance. And perhaps in that endurance, there was a kind of strength the gods had never expected. Pandora's jar had cursed mankind, but it had also given them the spark to fight, to survive, and to keep moving forward. And so, the story of the jar is not merely a tale of destruction. It is the story of the human condition itself. We suffer, we break, we stumble under the weight of countless burdens. But we also rise, again and again, carried by the fragile light that Pandora left behind. The world was forever changed, but it was in that change that mankind became truly human. When Pandora finally slammed the lid of the jar shut, her hands trembling and her breath quickening. She believed that everything good in the world had been lost. The cries of suffering still echoed in her ears, disease spreading, hunger gnawing, envy twisting hearts, despair clouding minds. She collapsed beside the jar, broken, consumed with guilt at what she had done. How could one simple act, a moment of weakness driven by curiosity, unravel the golden age of mankind? The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm itself. She dared not touch the jar again, fearing that even more curses might be waiting. But something caught her attention. A faint sound, softer than a sigh, quieter than a whisper, came from within. She leaned close, her heart racing, expecting another horror. Yet what she saw was different. Inside the jar, a soft glow pulsed gently, like a candle's flame hidden beneath glass. It was not dark or violent like the shadows she had unleashed. It was calm, delicate, yet unyielding. This was not another curse. This was something else entirely. Hope. For a moment, Pandora hesitated. Should she let it escape? What if it too was a trick, another punishment disguised in beauty? But as the light touched her skin, she felt warmth, comfort, and a quiet strength that lifted her heart. Carefully, she loosened the lid just enough for the glow to slip free, and the light spread into the world. Hope did not erase the suffering that had already been unleashed. People still fell ill, still hungered, still aged, still quarreled, still despaired. But where sickness weakened, hope inspired healing. Where hunger gnawed, hope urged people to sow and harvest again. Where envy poisoned, hope reminded hearts of love and gratitude. And where despair whispered of surrender, hope promised that better days were possible. In this way, humanity found a strange balance. The world was harsher than before, yet people began to endure. They worked harder than they ever had, not because life was easy, but because hope told them that their struggles mattered. They sang songs not just of joy, but of perseverance. They built homes stronger than before, not because they feared collapse, but because they dreamed of safety for their children. Every act of resilience became proof that hope was alive within them. The gods, watching from Olympus, were divided in their reactions. Some sneered, pleased that mankind now suffered. Others were unsettled, realizing that hope might give mortals the courage to rise even against divine will. Zeus himself frowned, for though he had succeeded in cursing mankind, the persistence of hope meant that mortals would never be truly broken. No matter how deep their suffering, there would always be something inside them pushing them to fight, to survive, to endure. Pandora, though burdened with guilt, came to understand the duality of her act. She had unleashed sorrow, yes, but she had also ensured that mankind would never be entirely crushed by it. She herself became a symbol, not just of curiosity and its dangers, but of the human spirit's ability to find light in the darkest of nights. Her name carried the weight of tragedy, yet also the seed of endurance. And so the myth of Pandora's jar endures, retold across generations not simply as a tale of punishment, but as a lesson in resilience. For every suffering humanity faces, there is always hope lingering, sometimes faint, sometimes hidden, but never gone. Even today, the story echoes in our lives. When sickness spreads, we search for cures. When hunger rises, we share and rebuild. When envy stirs, we strive to forgive. And when despair looms, hope reminds us that the dawn follows even the darkest night. It is not blind optimism, but a quiet strength that allows us to keep moving forward despite everything against us. Perhaps this was the true gift hidden within the jar all along. Not the punishment, but the reminder that mankind's greatest power is not fire, not strength, not even wisdom, but the ability to hope, to look at a world filled with suffering and still believe in tomorrow. And so, Pandora's tale closes not with despair, but with endurance. The golden age of ease may be gone forever, replaced by a harsher world. But hope ensures that humanity does not merely survive. It grows, it learns, it rises. Out of the darkness, the faintest light continues to shine, guiding us through the ages. This is the eternal lesson of Pandora's Box, that even in the shadow of suffering, hope remains.